County chair. I've been county chair of Harris County Republican Party a little over a year. I know a lot of y'all. We have a lot of precinct chairs here, a lot of other folks getting involved. We're trying these events where we bring our elected officials, create opportunities for them to talk to the grassroots, talk to supporters, and sure answer your questions. Y'all probably will have a lot of them, I'm sure. So I'm very pleased tonight. Congressman John Culberson has agreed to be with us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
When he wraps up, I'll talk a little bit about some of the programs we have going on. It's that time of year, and that year when we usually are doing very little in the off year, and we just got past Labor Day. Everybody's worried about the city elections. We've set out this past year to get ready for next year. We have to do it now. So that's why we're glad y'all are here. We're going to get more and more people involved in the party. We have spent last months block walking, phone banking, ongoing on a regular basis. We've learned our lessons from the Obama campaign, and we're going to beat them at their own game. I promise you, we're going to do that. So part of that is building our organization, growing the party, and being on the ground on a year-round basis. We've got this headquarters here. We've been here a little over a year. We have 3 more headquarters now operating around the county, one down at Clear Lake, one in Kingwood, one up the Tomball Parkway at Jones Road. Hopefully have more as we go along. I appreciate everybody's support. This is all very critical to being able to build the organization and get people involved and to elect people like and officials like Congressman John Culberson. So I'm going to bring him up here. Let me give you a little background on Congressman Culberson. He, like a lot of us, he's a lawyer. I hate to say that. He actually got out of after his undergrad. He was a law student at South Texas, and while he was a law student, got elected to state representative from the northwest part of the county. Served 14 years in the, I believe that's right, in the state house, became minority whip, and then in 2000 he was elected Congress in the 7th Congressional District. We have something in common. His congressional district is the 7th. He's only the 3rd congressman from that district, very conservative Republican district. His predecessor, like mine, was George H.W. Bush. George H.W. Bush was county chair of the party about 50 years ago, and he was the last county chair to go on to any other elective office. So it's not a stepping stone to anything. And he wisely left the county chair spot to go run for the new congressional seat that was opened up. And he was in Congress 4 years. Then y'all may remember Bill Archer, who is a congressman from that district for 30 years. And then since then, 2000, John Culberson has represented that district very ably. He's a number of specialties and he can tell you all about them, but he is on the very important Appropriations Committee of the House and now chairs the CJS subcommittee, which is, I think, Commerce, Justice, and Science, which has jurisdiction over NASA and a number of other areas. I think it can be critical to us achieving the victories we need to achieve in this cycle and leading up to when we take back the White House in 2016, which we're going to do, I promise you. So with that, I asked John Culberson, and the other thing I want to say is Congressman Culberson is a great friend of the party. We appreciate his support and all we can do, and we hopefully be able to return that to all of our elected officials. So thank you, Congressman. Come on up.
I'm going to change the video.
No. I really appreciate the invitation, Paul. Thank you for the great work you're doing. When Paul mentioned that George H.W. Bush was the county chairman, I remember a great story that Betsy Lake, who was one of our past chairmen, told us when George H.W. Bush left the White House and came back to Houston. Betsy saw him somewhere, and one of the first things she said to him was that, well, Mr. President, now that you're back in Houston, you could, and I'm retiring as county chairman, you could go full circle, and we'd love to have you come back and run for Harris County chairman again. And he said instantly, without missing a beat, he said, I've done both jobs, and he said, you couldn't pay me enough to come back and be Harris County Party chairman. It really is a difficult and extraordinarily important job. Paul does it so well. It's unpaid. It's like got to be almost, if not more difficult, to being a school board member, which is also unpaid. And really difficult and so important. And Paul's got the party back in the black. Multiple offices over the county. All the bills are paid. Superb staff. Tremendous grassroots organization in every part of the county. The county party couldn't even pay the bills. I don't think the rent was paid for a long time.
There were times.
There were problems. But Paul's really turned it around and done an extraordinary job, and I'm happy to help and do my part and to make sure that, as I always have, keep my word first and foremost, because it's an essential part of Paul's job is he's got to have candidates that are folks that you're proud to support, happy to support, want to support. Those of you who have known me and followed me for years, other than a few pounds and a few gray hairs, I haven't changed much. I am native Houstonian, born and raised here. West University is, the house is still there. I haven't torn it down yet to build a new one on it. And went to Westview Elementary and through the Houston Public Schools. And was in Austin, in fact, during my second term when I met Belinda Burney, who was working for Governor Clemence's chief of staff, Mike Toomey, in early 1989, but I was too scared to ask her out until Texas Independence Day on March 2nd, and then we got married that December, and Belinda is with me tonight, my wife Belinda, who I'm so lucky to have, and our neighbor and Belinda's lifelong friend, Anita Kittredge, is here with us, and it's fun to see her, and it's just, I'm abundantly blessed. I pinch myself every day, next to representing you and this incredible, very frustrating job that you got to have a sense of humor and a lot of patience for. Being a father and a husband is about the only thing that beats what I get to do for you. It's an extraordinary privilege to be a link in a chain of living history that goes all the way back to the days of the founders, and to actually have a chance to try to restore the America that we inherited, this incredible inheritance we got from George Washington and the founders. It's a great privilege. I couldn't do it without the help of the county party, a lot of wonderful volunteers and friends throughout the district, because I've always run grassroots campaigns. I'm very lucky to have a wonderful group of people that help me with my campaign fundraising. The last thing I want to do, Jennifer Naylor, I want to thank her. My treasurer is here. Thank you, Jennifer. Cynthia Dannenbrink, my district director. Thank you. We couldn't do what we do without you, and I have so much to keep track of and work on. And there's a lot of different things that we want to, I'll mainly open it up for questions, but I want to tell you a little bit about some of the things I've been doing recently. Paul mentioned I'm the chairman of the, I'm on appropriations, a committee that I did not want. The reason I got it is I didn't want the job. I truly did not want it in the, it was late in 2002. I was at a dinner at Bob Lanier's home with Mike, with Tom DeLay, who was becoming majority leader in January. And Tom was on the Appropriations Committee, and he pulled me aside and he said, I'll give up my seat on Appropriations, but only if you'll take it. And I said, I really don't want it. I'm going to say no to everything. Starting answer is no, because we're broke and I don't like spending money. And he said, you're hired. You're perfect. And he pointed out quite correctly that it was the best committee in Congress because they're the only bills that have to pass. Every other bill can fail, but if you don't have the bill to keep the lights on and the air conditioning and the staff paid and things up and running, then everything shuts down. So everything else can fail, but the appropriations bills have to pass. And in the federal appropriations process, you can actually put permanent law changes in the appropriations bill. It doesn't just deal with the money. You can actually make permanent law changes in the federal appropriations bill, unlike the state legislature. I wasn't on the appropriations committee in the state house. In the state legislature, you just can move money around. You can't make permanent law changes. So it's the best of both worlds. You've got this extraordinary committee, and in the federal government, as is too often true in the state government, you can't fire anybody. That's one of the biggest problems I think Donald Trump's going to have, and he's going to discover it would be so much fun to see him tell all these guys, you're fired, but they're all civil service and they're dug in deeper than the Germans at Omaha Beach. You can't fire anybody. It's maddening. But if you control 100% of somebody's money, I've discovered you get 100% of their attention, and it really works every time. And so it turned out to be a great assignment. And I told Tom I would do it, but only if I got on a committee that had jurisdiction over NASA and the sciences and law enforcement, because I wanted to eventually be in a position to head that committee so I could make a real difference in helping make sure the border was secure, the laws are enforced, help get NASA back where they were as a kid. When I got my first telescope at 12 years old over on Plum Street between Belmont and Wake Forest, and I've always loved the space program, grew up with the Apollo astronauts who are heroes to me, like they are to so many of us here, and I grieve when I see NASA has fallen so far and is so bureaucratic and fouled up. And again, you can't fire anybody. And so, and I also really care about law enforcement. So I just got the job in January, and as frustrating and difficult as it is to deal with the U.S. Senate, which should follow Dan Patrick's lead, 70% of Texas counties voted 70% Republican, and Dan Patrick understood that the state had voted to absolutely reject the liberal Democrat agenda, and when the state voted that strongly, the Senate was still using this 2/3 rule in Austin that was called the Rosebush rule. It was invented nobody knows how long ago, and until Dan Patrick got there, literally the Texas Senate for the entire 140-day session was debating the location of trees and shrubs and rose bushes on the grounds of the Texas Capitol. And in order to take up and consider any piece of legislation other than the Rosebush bill, required a suspension of the rules, which required a 2/3 vote, and therefore any 11 of the 31 Texas senators could block anything. That's what Dan was talking about during the campaign. That's the sneaky procedural trick they used to defeat the will of the majority, and it left the minority in charge of the Texas Senate. And Dan was exactly right. He changed the rules and changed the way the Senate operates so they reflect the will of the people that had just voted in the election. And I've been saying this since the election until I'm blue in the face. Well, I don't know why the United States Senate doesn't follow Dan Patrick's lead and change their 60-vote rule and do the same thing for the country, what Dan did for Texas. And because right now, Harry Reid and a minority of people, Democrats in the U.S. Senate, can block anything. And I can tell you that I've been working on this for a long time. This is not for publication yet, what I'm about to tell you. If you don't mind, just